Are you interested in purchasing a replica diecast similar to the one that Todd Kidd used to win this year's Ajax 200, the one that defending champion Cameron Atwood used to win the first night race at Disney, the one that Todd Kidd used to win his 10th milestone Ajax Cup victory at Belltown, or the one that Laquan Scranton used to win under the lights in the Ajax All-Star race? Well, if you are, you're in luck. Head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA on any orders $20 or more to acquire free shipping at checkout.
Hello and welcome to the final edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast for the 2024 ASCA campaign. I cannot believe it. Feels like just yesterday, me and Nick were up at about midnight filming the preseason edition for this for season 10 of the modern era, and making our predictions for the year. And Nick obviously correctly predicted Diego Orkedi to win the title, which that aged extremely well. And it's crazy to think that here we are 4 months 17 weeks later, and yet another ASCA season is in the books. And before we get into the episode, I'd like to thank all of the fans of this sport that offered their support and their kind words to wrap up the season on Saturday night. Obviously that means a lot to the people that run this and pour their time and energy and their efforts into this. So obviously that means a lot to them, and they greatly appreciate it. So greatly appreciate all of you guys for that. And we're back for another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. I don't know if I introduced myself, but if I didn't, I am your host, Charles Fallon, back in here. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's a jam-packed final episode of the season. We're going to take a little bit of a break in the off-season unless anything big comes up. But we obviously have a big story to kick off the off-season and heading into silly season for 2026 with a big name driver announcing their retirement. We got to talk about who's going to replace him. We got to talk about a former champion completing an absolutely dominant performance at Belltown, just absolutely annihilating the competition. We got to talk about the GOAT of the ASCA. That is a discussion we need to have right now, obviously, with what a certain driver did over the weekend. I'm going to take a look back at the year that was, a comprehensive look, and to look at some rising stars that are the future of this sport and could potentially topple the now GOAT of the ASCA. We got to talk about a surprising winless season from an entire manufacturer and a big name organization. They got a lot of soul searching to do. And so before we get into the business for this week's episode, first off, once again, shout out to the podcast premier partners, Rowdy Energy. You already know, click the link in bio and the second link in bio and go cop yourself a Rowdy Energy at that link. They're incredibly good, so go do that after you finish listening to this episode. And Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales. Hey, if you want to cop a replica diecast similar to the one that Diego Orkedi used to win his record for championship in the Ajax season finale, go on, head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and go get yourself one. It will certainly be well worth it. I would say so myself. Use coupon code ASCA for $20 and more, free shipping at checkout as well, only in the US. I am completely discombobulated for this final episode. I'm so hyped up, but yeah. Shout out once again for the final time this season to the sports premier partners, Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales. So let's get into it. Obviously, the big story to come for this week, we thought it would be, Orkedi Bros Racing securing their 5th title in the past decade, which is absolutely astonishing when you think about it. 4 from Diego, obviously, and 1 from Nick in 2016. But the elder Orkedi brother, Nick Orkedi, announced he will be calling it quits at the end of the 2025 campaign. And this is shocking. Honestly, it really is. And I get that when you look at the writing has kind of been on the wall for Nick. He's had back-to-back winless seasons. He's coming off a career, not a career low points finish, but his worst points finish since like 2012, I believe. Like he hasn't had a points finish this bad in over a decade. 13th in the final standings after a really rough final 2 weeks, dropping 7 spots in points. Really rough way to end his season, and I think that maybe that was it. Maybe he was already going to do this. Because here's the thing, Nick has only won 4 races this decade, since Diego and Nick both reached the 10-win milestone in 2018. Since then, Diego has gone on to win an additional 15 races. Nick has only won 4. That is a staggering difference between the two, because up until then, Diego and Nick were around the same amount of wins for the most part, and then Diego really this past kind of half decade or so has absolutely edged him, kind of taken off and edged himself up there with the absolute legends of the sport, and arguably the greatest of all time the sport's ever seen, compared to Nick, who has just, again, only 4 wins in the past decade. I mean, not the past decade, the past half decade. He's had the points finishes, but not really these past couple years. He hasn't really been a championship contender since 2020. And so with all that being said, plus you add in the fact that Nick only signed a 1-year contract extension at the start of the 2024 season. And you would think that his family-owned team, he would sign a long-term deal, because he has all the leverage. His dad owns a team. Like, he can stay there as long as he wants. He's a former champion, former Windows 200 winner. You'd think that, he would sign a longer contract if he was going to stick around long-term. I don't think he could leave anywhere and get any better than he has at Orkedi Bros Racing. But the writing was on the wall, and the shocking part is that Nick is only going to be 35 years old in 2025. So he is, relatively, like, he is old in terms of, ASCA driver standards, but you have guys like Randall Woods that seem like they're going to continue to press on. He's 37. Norm Lester still looking for a full-time drive. We'll see if he gets one, but he's 38. He doesn't plan on retiring anytime soon. Jimmy Hood raced an additional year, until he was 36. So it seems a little premature for Nick, but I think he kind of sees the writing on the wall. I think that he does not want to be one of those guys that sticks around well past their prime. And he even cited that as such in his press conference. Like, he cited that he obviously has a wife. He's got multiple kids at home. He wants to spend more time with them. And obviously, the ASCA schedule is incredibly grueling, especially for Cup drivers. It is 17 straight weeks of racing. No weeks off. It is grind time, on even numbered years. It's February to June, 17 straight weeks. Odd number years, it's late August to December. That is a grind, 4 months. So it's no joke. And obviously, I think he wants to kind of take a step back and spend more time with his family. He sees the writing on the wall, and he also sees the guys that the Ford development program have in the pipeline, aka, the youngest Craftsman Series champion in history, youngest ASCA champion in history, the youngest ASCA race winner in history, Graham Darty. He's looking for a Cup ride relatively soon. Ian Adonde. They already got Carson Schmidt in the fold at Orkedi Bros Racing. Like, the future is now. Ford they've kind of struggled developing guys, I would say, for throughout this decade thus far. They had Devin Smith and they had Carson Schmidt, you know, through this year, and Smith has turned out to be a bust. Schmidt looked like a bust, but he really finished out the 2024 campaign strong and now looks like one of the brightest young stars in the sport. And then additionally, they've had, Alex Dennis and Felix Anderson and Keegan Bartley. All those guys ended up flaming out. But now they got Darty, they got Adonde, and these are guys that can make it at the next level, specifically Darty. He is a special talent. I think he sees that, and Nick knows that, it now might be, it's now or never if you want to retire. And he sees the writing on the wall, and I commend him. He's had a fantastic career, like we mentioned earlier. 14 Ajax Cup wins, a Cup Series champion, a Windows 300 winner. Like he has done a lot of things in this sport, and I know he hasn't had the most success throughout the 2020s. I know that he's kind of living at his younger brother's shadow, Diego, who has certainly risen to an entirely different level of superstardom. But, you know, Nick has certainly been no slouch when it comes to his career path. And I hope that for his sake, he can at least get one more win before he goes out. I'd hate to see him on such a long winless streak to cap off what's been a pretty illustrious ASCA career. So it's going to be a shame. It's going to be very odd to see only one Orkedi on the grid in 2026. And that begs the question, who goes to number 2? Is it Darty? Is it Adonde? Is it someone else we don't know? Are they going to try to poach someone? Are they going to try to poach a Tony Del Val from Michael White Racing? Ford generally doesn't do that because they do have the Ford development program after all. But they have options, and I think that right now I would say the odds-on favorite is obviously the reigning Craftsman Series champion Graham Darty. But it could be anyone at this point. They haven't named their replacement yet, but we'll see. We'll see. But certainly it was a bittersweet announcement for Nick Orkedi, and certainly going to be tough. He is one of the most recognizable names in the sport, and to not have him on the grid in 2026 is going to be wild. And when you look at some of the veteran drivers in this sport, like Orkedi now announcing his retirement, like we just mentioned, Randall Woods 37, Norm Lester 38. How much longer realistically are those two going to be able to go before they have to hang it up? I would reckon, maybe 2 to 3 more years tops. They could retire as soon as the year after next. So we really don't know. It's going to be extremely interesting to kind of follow that entire situation. But farewell to Nick Orkedi. He's not retiring immediately, but after the 2025 campaign. And I hope the ASCA does something special to send him off like they did for Jimmy Hood a couple years ago. Then moving onwards to the Ajax season finale itself at Belltown. And there's 2 words to describe that race. Greg Healy. What more do you need to say other than Greg freaking Healy? Qualified on pole, swept both practice sessions, broke the track record in qualifying, and then goes on to, just lead 200 laps of the race and scores milestone 10th Ajax Cup Series victory to keep his yearly win streak alive and extend it to 5 straight years. Truly an incredibly dominant performance from Greg Healy. It's a shame for the fans, I'm sure, that he had to stink up the show so badly to close out what's really been a fun season of racing. But Greg Healy is just, when he is in the zone, especially at a track like Belltown, where he has won 5 out of the last 8 races, it is insane what Healy can do. When he is in the zone, when he is on, when he has a car that's good enough to win. There's a reason why he's a Cup champion. And what he had led, 522 of the last 600 laps in the Ajax season finale. Half of his career wins have come at Belltown. Do you know how insane that is? Half of his career wins have come at Belltown. The other 5 have come 2 at Disney, 1 at Advocare. That was his first career win, and then the Windows 300 and West Banco 250. So it's just insane for Healy. Hard to believe, from his rise to stardom, really. When he signed that big 6-year, $45 million contract, everyone was calling Suits Enterprises crazy. Like, you're giving a guy with no cup wins such a big money deal. What are you people doing? And now you look at that contract compared to Bryn Renner's contract, and it's literally freaking chump change for Healy. And he's up for a renewal coming 2026. We'll see how much he breaks the bank that time, but I guarantee you he's going to be making a lot more than $45 million. That's for sure. When it comes time to renew his contract this time, he certainly delivered that and then some. Obviously, 10 career wins in that span since signing the contract, as well as a Cup championship in 2022. And good for Healy to become the 10th different winner in 2024 and cap off what's kind of been a rough year for him. He has 6th in points. He's finished there the past couple years. And obviously for Snoots Enterprise, they want to win another title. They want to compete for championships. And Healy hasn't really been in that conversation the past 2 years. So they certainly do need to improve there. And considering the fact that Healy has only won at Belltown the past 2 years as well, that's also cause for concern. But we'll see if bringing in Lucas Sambert to that 8 car, if that's able to help the organization enough to really take that next step and get back to where they were in 2022 and even 2020 for that matter. So then moving onwards, another guy that had a night to remember at Ajax, not Ajax, in the Ajax season finale is Diego Orkedi. 7th place result, but takes home the championship. And 4th title ties him for Ronnie Woods for most on the all-time wins list. But when I look at the 2 different eras that these drivers have raced in, no offense to Ronnie Woods, because he was the GOAT of his time, the GOAT of his generation. He won 3 titles for his own team. Then he goes for Orkedi Bros Racing and wins a title for them too. But when I look at what Diego Orkedi has done in the past decade against the toughest era competition the sport has ever seen, it truly puts things into perspective, man. And like the guys that Orkedi is racing up against, these are guys that have trained their entire lives to get to this point, worked their way up the ranks to the Craftsman to get the Cup. Whereas, back in the day, when the ASCA was just getting started, getting off the ground, anyone could hop off the street, get in a Cup car, and run the next week. It's completely different. Like, this is it's a billion, not a $1 billion business, but a multi-million-dollar business. Guys are making big money. Bernard making $13 million a year. Diego himself making $96 million on an 8-year contract right now. Like, big bucks go into this sport. Randall Woods on $100 million deal. So, big money goes into this. A lot of teams have invested a lot of money to try to stop Orkedi Bros Racing, and specifically Diego Orkedi, and they still can't do it. They just can't do it. And it's remarkable to see Diego just take a new final form. Like, obviously he's been known for bullying and dominating races and, all the controversy surrounding him. But this year was completely different. A completely mellowed out Diego with all that therapy, with the wife at home to finally calm him down. He's taken a completely different form, and he just finessed his way to a title. 10 top 5s, 14 top 10 finishes. Doesn't matter he didn't have the most wins. 14 top 10 finishes, more often than not, will win you a championship. So, is Diego the GOAT of the ASCA? I think the answer is yes. I know he's not 32 wins that Ronnie Woods is at, but he's definitely on pace to get there. I would say he just won a title at age 33 with arguably one of the best years of his career. So I don't see him stopping anytime soon. He could go winless like Randall Woods did after winning a title at age 33. but I just don't see it. Like, I see Orkedi Racing continuing to improve. And especially now with the future being there and Carson Schmidt, even with Nick obviously announcing his retirement, they have the forward development program has prospects in line set to replace him, extremely talented young kids that are ready to work their way up to the cup level. Like, man, the future is bright for Orkedi Bros Racing, and I very well think that they can continue their dynasty. I think it's going to be Diego continuing the dynasty as well. Can he get a fifth championship though? I don't put it past him. I didn't think he would get. I didn't think he would get two. He did. I didn't think he would get three. He did. I didn't think he'd get four. He did. So fifth championship, not out of the realm of possibility. It could certainly happen. The drive for 5 in 2025 is alive and well. And let's see if Diego can get the job done. And if he does win a fifth title, yeah, this isn't even a discussion. No question he's the GOAT. But even as it stands right now, I'd still consider him the GOAT. And if he retired tomorrow, induct him into the Hall of Fame immediately. Like, he deserves it. He is just, his career accolades are just on another level, man. It's truly, truly something to behold. And love him or hate him, just admit that you are witnessing greatness right in front of your eyes on a weekly basis from Diego. Now, let's take a look back at the year that was in a microscope. And we've been zoomed in on a microscope, taking a look at the race weekends on a week-to-week basis. But then taking a look back at the way this entire season panned out and all the storylines that kind of built up. At the start of the year, it seemed like it might be Todd Kidd's year. He comes out and dominates the Ajax 200. Ronnie Williams Motorsports wins the first two races. Kitten Park looked incredibly strong. But then Diego wins West Virginia, and he starts to gain form and rack up top six after top six after top six. And he went on that incredible run of 10 straight top 10s and really kind of ran away with the championship. But in terms of the year that was, obviously Todd Kidd, we all know how talented he is, and he certainly backed that up this year. Still no championship, but another top 3 points finish, third in points, 3 wins, including finally getting 2 crown jewel victories. We've been waiting to see, when is he going to win a crown jewel race? He did. When is he going to pass double-digit wins? He did. When is he going to win a Windows 300? He did. Now we're just waiting. When is he going to win a championship? And it's got to happen sooner than later. I mean, the dude has finished inside the top 3 in points the past 5 years straight, inside the top 5 in points the past 7 years straight. I mean, these are getting on Diego Orkedi levels of impressive. And it's more impressive when you consider the fact that Greg Healy, 2022 champion, has finished 6th in points the past couple years. So we had, 5 different winners in 5 races to open up the year. Then Kidd won. And then Laquan Scranton really kind of rose to prominence. And he was another big theme throughout the season at the cup level. Laquan is just, he is insane, dude. He is insane. Easily the most talented young driver we've ever seen to enter this sport. Not even a question. 5 career victories at the age of 21. 544 laps at the age of 21, mind you. Right up there, 4th in points. And then you consider the fact that his teammate finished comfortably dead last in the standings and has finished there the past couple of years. Like, Scranton elevating that Dexter Andrews Motorsports equipment to title contention is truly something to behold. And if he can stay out of trouble, we all know he had that arrest, obviously, back after his win at Michigan that nearly once again put his career in jeopardy. But if he can stay out of trouble, him and Marcus Edwards are going to be dangerous at the ASCA level for a long time to come. Scranton's obviously under contract through 2034. So he's stuck with Dexter Andrews Motorsports for the next decade plus. But As for Edwards, he's got a ton of potential as well. We saw the fight he gave Graham Darty at the Craftsman level. And I think Edwards and Darty both kind of prove that they have potential to really do some big things in Cup, and they are going to be the future of the sport. Marcus Edwards, 22 years old, same age as Scranton, except he's got zero Cup experience, and Scranton already has 5 career wins and a top 5 points finish. So, and I think Laquan has to be up there for a championship favorite next season. Not even a question. He's just gotta nail down the consistency. Only 9 top 10 finishes, that's unacceptable. And that's why even is third in points, despite leading 544 laps and winning 3 races. You cannot, when a champion has 14 top 10s and you have 9, that's not going to cut it. And then even for Park and Kidd, 9, 12, and 11 top 10s for both of them. Speaking of Shane Park, another guy who really broke out this season, only had the 1 win at the Streets Computerville. And his detractors are going to say, oh, Shane Park can only win on road races. He's only a road ringer, guys, glorified road ringer. Come on now. 23 years old, 7 top 5s, 12 top 10 finishes. This dude, another guy with an extremely bright future in this sport. I know he's only got the 2 career wins. He's not as flashy as Scranton, but we all know he's due for an oval win here very soon. Just finished runner-up in points, and I think he has certainly vindicated Ronnie Woods' decision to pay him that hefty $10 million a year salary to put him in the number 24. I mean, look at the 8 car since then. Carr hasn't even had a top 10 finish since Park stepped out of it, while Park just finished second in the point standings. So, like Shane Park, incredible talent. I think he's certainly up there as a title threat to Diego and stopping the Orkedi Bros Racing dynasty. As is Cameron Atwood, the defending champion, had such an up and down season. Had one stretch there where he had, 4 DNFs in 5 races. Absolutely ridiculous. He's had 6 DNFs overall in this season, but really finished the year strong. Finally started to battle back, had some good luck there at the end, and had the 2 wins as well, both on short tracks. Surprise, surprise. So Atwood, obviously, on the short track, he's going to be a threat. And once again, just carrying CJ Barrymore Racing up the grid. Because Chris Barrymore started the season looking like he was going to be a title threat, but then he fell apart. Ryan Dixon had an absolutely awful season, the worst of his career, but Atwood, once again, continuing to carry the banner for CJ Barrymore Racing, and he'll certainly be another guy to watch out for in 2024. Speaking of Graham Darty, we talked about a little bit earlier, he is the future of this sport. Special talent that he is, taking home that Craftsman Championship despite Marcus Edwards giving him all he could handle and then some. And then when you consider he's only 18 years old, he is a more polished off-the-track version of Laquan Scranton. He's a lot less reckless than Scranton, a lot more cool, calm, and collected. We've seen him get riled up, like at, I believe, the Stone Yard, when he thought his season was over. It's taking on the opening lap there, then comes back and finishes, second and third the final 2 weeks. So, yeah, Darty, I think, he's a much safer bet than Scranton is, but obviously Scranton has panned out, which certainly means you would think that Darty would pan out. But obviously, nothing is for sure in this business. So we will see. Then moving on to a team that had a year to forget in 2024, and that would be Toyota and Michael White Racing. Winless this past season. Only 1 win overall in the 30 combined ASC events, thanks to Jared Ayers at Denver. Because if he didn't win that race, oh my God, what an embarrassment that would be for Toyota as a whole. But man, they have a lot of questions to answer. And obviously, they're making some changes in the offseason. Norm Lester out at Michael White Racing, Lucas Sambert out at Flores Motorsports. You bring in Bryn Reddard on a big money contract, the new highest paid driver in the sport. You bring in Tommy Woods, an experienced Craftsman regular, to Flores Motorsports. You would think that these additions should be able to help them a substantial amount, but the fact remains that this team was just incredibly slow at the end of the season. And I think Randall Woods' stat line really sums it up. 3 top 5s, but 11 top 10 finishes. And what that tells me, and Woods only led, 50 laps all season? None outside of the first Belltown race. What that tells me is that Woods was dragging that car up the order week after week after week after week. And, he ended up finishing 7th in points, obviously going winless for the second time in 3 years. And for Randall, he's frustrated, man. He knows that his time is running out. His championship window is running out. He doesn't have forever to wait around and, waste these years going winless, 7th in the standings. Like, that's not good enough for him. This is a guy that's won 26 races at the Cup level. So obviously he knows what he's doing. No doubt about it. But Michael White Racing has a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. They need to make some serious changes. Something's got to give. Wholesale changes need to be made to that organization because clearly they just don't have it right now. So something's got to give. Something's got to change at that team. And we'll see what Michael decides to do. But I think he knows that something's got to happen. And, he can't, there's nothing he can really do in terms of the driver situation since everyone's under contract through the 2025 season outside of Brandon Bennett. But I'm sure, after Bennett had a really solid rookie season for the second of the Michael White Racing Camrys, 11th in points. Well, easily won Rookie of the Year. They got to bring him back, I would think. It would make absolutely no sense to let him go. Really solid rookie season for him. So Bennett, I would think, comes back. But what do you do with Jared Ayers? This is now we're entering 40-plus races without a victory at the Cup level. That's unacceptable. They've obviously booted Norm Lester out of the team, so he's done. You can't give Randall Woods on a lifetime contract. So, do you swap up the crew chiefs? What do you do? It's a tough situation, but they got to do something. Get in the wind tunnel, do a lot of testing in the offseason. They got to figure something out because they cannot afford to go winless again in 2025. Or going to lose a lot of sponsors, going to lose a lot of investors. Toyota, I'm sure, certainly can't be pleased. And they do at least have Tony Delwell in the pipeline. He certainly seems like the real deal, but outside of that, this team just doesn't have much going for them at this point. So we'll see how the Bryn Reddard edition works out for him next year. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that wraps it up. The 2024 campaign. This episode was kind of all over the place to try and recap all the top storylines from the season, but that's it. That is it for the 10th season of modern era ASC action. I can't believe it. I really can't. Thank you to the two of you that listen this far in the podcast every week. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast, Plan B Sales. Thank you to all the viewers of ASC broadcasts throughout the season. You are greatly appreciated. And that is it for the 2024 ASC Weekly Podcast. This is the final episode of the season. We will hopefully be renewed for next season, and we'll have a lot to talk about previewing Speedways because that's when we'll be back. So, for the final time this season, this year, this is Charles Fallon signing out.